So here's one of my problems, everyone, is that I've just been spending the last couple of minutes looking at the English translation of the Internationale. For those of you who don't know what the Internationale is, it is a left-wing anthem. I haven't looked at the lyrics for quite a while. And I don't even know if I'm starting on time. It's 9 o'clock, so I was looking at the lyrics of the Internationale. And if you don't know the lyrics, I'll just say a couple of the... there are no supreme saviors, neither God nor Caesar nor tribune. Speaks to my secular heart right there. Good morning. Good morning. This is Andy Hogg. You're watching the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. We're going to cover all kinds of stories today, as we always do, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern, unless I start early, unless I start late, which I hardly ever start late. I just want to make sure that I'm actually streaming, because sometimes I start talking, and I am streaming. Good. Because there are times I just think I'm streaming and I'm not. Stories we're covering today. Google diversity. Google had to fire its chief of diversity for anti-Semitism. Of course, MyPillow man. Well, not MyPillow man. Mike Lindell. Could he have been the person to start out the big version of the big lie, saying that Trump's going to be reinstated in August? He thinks so. Landlords, corporate landlords tossing out evicting Black Americans at 4 times the higher rate than white Americans. Yeah, we're covering that story. And Arctic ice melting at double the rate than previously thought. New study, everyone, new study. And what else? Do we have a video? Oh, and Matt Gaetz. It's going to be a crazy hour. Let's do something funny before we get into the news.
This cat is so tiny. It's like a beanie baby. He's searching the World Wide Web. Look how big the tummy is.
Hey, let's see who's out and about in the chat. Scott Duke. Hope you're doing well today, Scott. Blazing. Americats. I like Americats. You know, Stephen Colbert, when he was running his show, the Colbert Report, he would call his people nation. I was thinking about something. And, you know, when I was doing this show with Chris Mallard, he would call, you know, people watching the damnation. And I'm thinking I still haven't really been able to peg or to think of a really good name for people who like the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. And Americats, I really like, but of course it's very American-centered. But it is pretty cool. Simply Secular Dave from the West Coast. Grant Farrer, glad to see that you're here. James Henry, hope you're doing well. Jessi Bear, B, glad to see that. Glad to see you. Tesla Ranger, Jess M. Hey, B, glad to see that you're here. Glad to see that I get everyone. And also I've been writing notes. I have my cheat sheet here, not just to talk about the news story, but to ask people to hit the like button too, if you could. That would be wonderful. And I want to welcome the newest member, YouTube member, Cryptameria. So thank you, Cryptameria, for throwing a couple of shekels my way every month. It is greatly appreciated. Let's see. I'm a disappointed cat. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I don't know what everyone's weekend plans are. As many of you know, I am going to be away on Monday and Tuesday. I'm going off to Colorado with a girlfriend. She lived in Colorado for a number of years. She has many friends. She hasn't been out there since the pandemic started, so I'm schlepping out there with her. Going to be on a plane for the first time in quite a while. I don't know how I feel about that, everyone. I'm going to just talk to my microphone. I don't know how I feel about going on a microphone. I don't feel really at ease being on a plane. I'm fully vaccinated, and I know the way air gets recirculated in an airplane, it's actually a lot safer than a lot of other indoor areas. But I got my anxiety's up a little bit higher than usual about going on an airplane tomorrow. Oh man, I gotta be up at 5 5:30 tomorrow to get on the airplane. So that's basically my weekend plans. Flying out to Colorado. We're going to a graduation party an hour after we land. It should be an exciting time, to tell you the truth. There's mountains out there, everyone. Like, there's some mountains here in the Northeast, but those are like big mountains out in Colorado. So I always enjoy going out there. I've only been out there a handful of times, but looking forward to this weekend's trip. Simply Secular Dave says, I'm often disappointed and a little furry. Yeah. My fur, I have to, it's time for me to do a shave pretty soon. And you probably can't tell, but I had my Biscuit's hair, my cat's hair is still on my jacket. I haven't completely defurred my jacket yet. Blazing says, I'm planning to have a couple of walks out in the sunshine. Oh, yeah. Well, if there is going to be sunshine. To live is to hope. Scott Duke. My weekend plans, watch Columbo reruns and avoid any non-salad food. There are days that it gets to be around 6 o'clock at night and I'm going, I don't know if I've eaten a fruit or vegetable all day. Maybe I should load up, but maybe I should have one at least. Sunday, however, Blazing says, full of live streams and stuff to show my face in the chats on. Cool. Monday and Tuesday next week, I'm going to be showing a conversation I had with Secular Cinephile. He is a psychiatrist. He's also a blogger over at Pathos Non-Religious. The man loves films. He reviews movies. And we had a great conversation about atheism, about psychiatry. And the question I always love to ask my guests, is faith a mental disorder? Yes, we talk about that too, everyone. Simply, I'm going to be dividing up that 1 hour conversation into 2 episodes, and that's going to be Monday and Tuesday next week, because I'm not going to be here. I can't do the show. Grant Farmer says, my weekend plans is to ride my e-trike up to my friend's house and watch a bunch of stuff with them. Oh, that's cool. All right, so should we do memes first? Let's do some memes, and then we'll start talking about Google and diversity. All right, first funny meme at least. Here we go. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, you'll get the joke about Obi-Wan Kenobi giving Darth Vader. I'm sorry, that's my Boston coming up. It's Darth Vader. A lava lamp. Obi-Wan gave Darth Vader a lava lamp. There you go. That's Boston right there for you, everyone. The next two, faith-based memes, everyone. Faith-based memes. A pastor giving a child's sermon on vestments asked, why do you think I wear this collar? One kid answered, because it kills ticks and fleas up to 30 days. I thought that was a cute joke, right? And then the last one. And then Jesus said, in order to help the poor, we will need a massive auditorium with 5 projectors, a state-of-the-art sound system, laser lights, 6 smoke machines, and a Christian rock band. I remember reading that somewhere in Matthew, perhaps. All right, checking out the chat. Darth Vader, exactly. All right. Time to talk about diversity over at Google. Funny story about this. A little bit about me. I was actually the diversity officer at the office, or at a job that I worked at. So I, looking as the way that I look, was the diversity officer. And so I would get to talk about diversity with my coworkers from Nigeria and Kenya. And yeah. And because I didn't volunteer for the position either, they just gave it to me. It was like, Andy, you're volunteering to be our diversity officer. It's like, do you understand that my diversity is pretty much where the Angles met the Saxons? But they say, yeah, you're volunteering for it. So that's fantastic. So let's go with the, so diversity, here it is. Links in the description, everyone. Google diversity head removed after anti-Semitic blog post. Like many of us, the person who was in charge of Google's diversity, he felt impassioned about a particular topic, the Palestinian issue, and it just went sideways. Let's check out the story, everyone. Google has removed its head of diversity over a 2007 blog post that said Jewish people had, quote, an insatiable appetite for war and killing, unquote. It's difficult to walk back something like this. It's difficult. Let's just go on. In a post about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that resurfaced this week, Kamal Bob also claimed Jewish people had an insensitivity to suffering. The post has now been deleted. On Thursday, a spokesperson for Google told the BBC that Mr. Bob would no longer be part of our diversity team going forward. We unequivocally, that's not a word, but I like it, unequivocally condemn the past writings by a member of our diversity team that are causing deep offense and pain to members of our Jewish community, they said. Look, as a blogger, it is difficult to write something that's emotional, that you feel very strongly about, and to do it in a clean way. And in a clean way, I mean in the fact that you say what you want to say in a tactical manner and just focusing on that one thing. Let's go on with the story. This is coming at a time where we've seen an alarming increase in anti-Semitic attacks. The spokesperson said, anti-Semitism has no place in society, and we stand with our Jewish community in condemning it. Mr. Bob, what a great name, Mr. Bob, who joined Google in 2018, has apologized to staff for the blog post. What did the blog post say? In 2007, and here's another thing, for those of you who write on the internet or who just tweet even, people will look at things from 10 years ago. You already know this, right? From 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Yeah, and it's difficult to defend everything you've ever done. Not saying that what Mr. Bob did was correct, but being on the internet and having everything out there, it's difficult. In the 2007 post titled, "If I Were a Jew," see, now that's a problem right there. I don't know if he had any editors, but he should have just stopped right there. That was a non-starter. In a 2000 post titled, "If I Were a Jew," Mr. Bob described how he believed Jewish people should feel, oh man, Mr. Bob, you're just off base with that, about the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, the Times of Israel reports. "If I were a Jew, I would be concerned about my insatiable appetite for war and killing in defense of myself," he wrote. "Self-defense is undoubtedly an instinct, but I would be afraid of my increasing insensitivity to the suffering of others." When the post resurfaced, campaigners were quick to call for Mr. Bob's resignation. Mr. Bob has not publicly responded to the criticism. However, according to the New York Post, he emailed the Jewish staff group at Google to apologize. "What I wrote crudely characterized the entire Jewish community. What was intended as a critique of particular military action fed into anti-Semitic tropes and prejudice," he wrote in an email. "I think we can all agree there's no easy solution to the situation, but that's beside the point," he added. "The way I expressed my views on the conflict were hurtful." You know, and I'll have to tell you, maybe I'm being too optimistic, people in the chat and observers, but perhaps this might have been a learning experience for Mr. Bob. I think perhaps it was something that he was able to learn, because that seemed like a legitimate apology. He didn't try to cover it up, because we've seen on this show so many people give the non-apology, right? They just, "This is my non-apology, by the way, I wasn't wrong," kind of responses. But this response seemed to be, it struck me as a person legitimately trying to do right. I'm going to check out the chat and see what you all think about this. Good morning, Derek Cruz and David Paul. I see what you did. I see what you did. I have always been a bit of an anti-Semitic myself, indeed. This is about me being the diversity chief of where I was working. Was the old company Irony Inc.? You would think so. You would think so. Well, Blazing, you're totally right on this. There are many people in Israel who are against the attacks on Palestinians, but they've never heard. Yeah, well, they've been dominated by the right over there. Now, this is interesting. This is a great quote by Clint Eastwood. This is the first time I've heard this. Thank you for putting this up too, Tesla Ranger. I'm interested in the fact that the less secure a man is, the more likely he is to have extreme prejudice. Yeah, freaking spot on. Spot on, Tesla Ranger. Yeah, you can't talk about anti-Semitism without mentioning Jewish-based lasers and Marjorie Taylor Greene, indeed. So that was our first story. What are we doing next? Should we talk about Matt Gaetz or should we talk about MyPillow, Mike Lindell? I'm going to go with Mike Pillow. Mike Pillow? I'm going to go with Mike Pillow, Mike Lindell. All right, let's check out. So I feel like once again I should be apologizing for American politics to my international friends out there. Yes. So you've probably heard the biggest variation of the big lie that Donald Trump is going to get reinstated as president in August this month, or in summer. I think there are a couple of variations of the lie. Sidney Powell was talking about he could be, the former lawyer for President Trump, or she was the lawyer at the time for President Trump, saying that he could get reinstated at any time. And Trump's been saying, it's like, I could get reinstated during the summer. Don't worry about it. Everything's all under control. And I want to take a little diversion before we get into this story about Mike Lindell and President Trump. I was listening to the Mark Maron podcast, the WTF podcast, and Mark, who's a great interviewer and a fantastic comedian, he was talking with Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman wrote the score. Okay, sure. Oingo Boingo, right? For all of you folks out there who were into Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman. He also wrote the score for The Simpsons, what he's probably most well known for. He also wrote the score for the first Batman movie, the one with Michael Keaton in it. And Elfman traveled quite a bit in Africa during the 1970s. And he spent some time in Idi Amin, the dictator, in his country, in Uganda, while Idi Amin was dictator. And so Danny Elfman was in this cab, and he was talking with the taxi driver, and he goes, so what do you think about Idi Amin? What do you think? He just outlawed miniskirts. Aren't you a little serious? And the taxi driver goes, nah, that's just talk. You have nothing to worry about. That's just talk. And of course, later on, Idi Amin's just like killing people by the scores, just killing people left and right. And Danny Elfman made the observation that it's like how people treat Trump now by just saying, that's just talk, is very similar to how people talked about Idi Amin before Idi Amin started killing people wholesale. And another interesting comparison between these two, between the dictator, Idi Amin, and the would-be dictator, Donald J. Trump, is that they're both clowns. A lot of people think of Donald J. Trump as a clown, and they actually had a nickname for Idi Amin in Uganda, and his nickname was the Clown. Tough stuff. Let's talk about Mike Lindell for a minute. MyPillow guy says he probably inspired Trump's idea of an August restoration. And it turns out that Mike Lindell just likes to say words. They're not really, in any kind of coherent, fact-based, reality-based type of, he just likes freestyle raps craziness, basically. And that's probably how we got the idea. Yes, I just said idea for the August restoration of Donald J. Trump. Links in the description, everyone. Donald Trump now has the notion in his head that he could return to the White House in August, but the twice impeached former president isn't getting the idea from constitutional scholars or his attorneys. Instead, MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell apparently inspired him. If Trump is saying August, then that is probably because he heard me say it publicly, Lindell told the Daily Beast on Wednesday. On Monday, the New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman tweeted that former President Trump has been telling associates that he expects to be restored to the presidency by August after Joe Biden's election is overturned. President Biden, of course, legitimately won the 2020 U.S. presidential election and decisively beat Trump in the Electoral College and popular vote. There is zero evidence to support that Trump will be back in office this summer or at any time during the rest of Biden's terms. Once again, Skepticism 101. How do you know what you know? Basic epistemology. Mr. Lindell, you have this assertion that Donald J. Trump is going to be back in office in August. Do you have any facts to support that? Oh, I hear my cat too. Of course he doesn't. Hello, Biscuit. We might get an appearance from my cat too, by the way. You want to come up? You want to talk about Idi Amin? Yeah, he was a bad man. All right, Biscuit's not coming up. Donald Trump, I believe, will be back by the end of August, Lindell said in a late May appearance on former Trump advisor Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, claiming that even liberals like MSNBC host Rachel Maddow would admit the election was stolen. So far, Maddow has not. Other Trump allies have claimed that Trump could soon return to office. He can simply be reinstated, but a new inauguration date is set, and Biden is told to move out of the White House, and President Trump should be moved back in. Pro-Trump lawyer Sidney Powell told a QAnon conference last weekend. Lindell's theory that Trump will be returned, and the tragedy of all this, everyone, is that there are a lot of Americans who think a scientific theory is equivalent to Mike Lindell's theory of Donald Trump returning to office in August. I know, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that too right now, that there are many Americans who think a scientific theory is the same thing, has the same validity to it as Mike Lindell's theory about Trump returning to office in August. Lindell's theory that Trump will be returned to office centers on the pillow magnate's claims that, together with a team of lawyers and well-intentioned white hat hackers, he amassed incontrovertible proof of election fraud to present to the Supreme Court. Once that evidence is unveiled, in Lindell's telling, the stunned justices will rule 9-0 to return Trump to the presidency. But Lindell may need to update his deadline. He originally came to the August date after deciding that the Supreme Court would overturn the election in either April or May, with a summer then devoted to hatching a government-wide consensus that Trump should retake the presidency in August. But both April and May have now passed without even a hint of the Supreme Court ruling in Trump's favor or the unveiling of Lindell's much-touted evidence. It's just one lie after another lie after another lie. It reminds me of those Christian groups who keep saying Jesus is going to return. He's going to return, set a certain date. Oh, well, we must have been wrong. Or, miraculous ways. Who knows? Wondrous ways, miraculous ways. Who knows when he's going to return? But we're going to give you another date so that we can con you and squeeze more money out of you. All right, there's like 31 comments in the chat I got to catch up on. Let's see what's going on. Clockwork Rex, how you doing? Glad to see that you're here. Wild Eden, always pleasure to see you. And Biscuit, yes, Biscuit was here. She was checking out what I was doing. I went down to grab her, but she scampered away. I've heard that my girlfriend has treats for her. She's already has treats for our cat in her office. Well, that's right, James Henry. Lindell and his allies and company are calling for the overthrow of a duly elected government. Indeed. Sedition 101. Yep, it is. All right, so let's see what else is going on here in the chat. I think I caught up with everyone. Maybe. I think I did. Girlfriend, how you doing? Oh, you don't have to use treats. Oh, that hurts. That just hurts right here. The girlfriend's saying that the cat just likes her better than me. Maybe. I'm going to use bribery. I'm going to have to amp the game, level up my cat game here. What have we done? What stories have we talked about so far? Google's head of diversity had to be relieved of duties because of an anti-Semitic post back in 2017, which he did, apologize to some people, not a public apology, but he did apologize to certain people. And of course, Mike Lindell, MyPillow, Donald Trump's my fascist liar guy. Oh, good question, Simply Secular Day. How is the girlfriend dealing with the loss of popularity in the polling sensitive parents of the cat? Well, I feel that people are much more, the reason why people check into this show has been for other people in the chat, me saying the word idea. And now since I showed the cat yesterday, maybe you're here to see if the cat's going to make an appearance. I really think that you're only here to see me. That's like a tertiary, far down on the list reason. All right. Halftime show, everyone. Halftime show. Just a reminder. I'm going to look at my notes. Please hit the like button. It helps in the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, which I'm constantly fighting here. I feel, and many of you might agree, that it's a quality show, and that if you hit the like button, then that means YouTube algorithm will show it to more people. And that would be pretty swell if I could use such bold language, swell. We do the halftime show here around this time. And I should plug the after party, after show, the open room where anyone can come in and just talk. And that's from 10 o'clock to 11. All right, so let's do something funny.
I like cats so much, I let them poop in a box in my house and scratch up the furniture and regularly puke on the floor. We just got a new couch, fully knowing the going to scratch the fuck out of that cat. I like cats so much, I let them poop in a box in my house.
If you are a regular watcher of the show, you probably remember the video where he talked about sleeping in his car right around the time that he turned 40. And he's a really inspiring character. He's found his voice on TikTok of all places. And he's a filmmaker. He has several films on Amazon. You can watch on Amazon Prime. I haven't seen any of his videos yet, his movies yet, though they are on the list of things to see. Really a talented guy. Check out the chat one more time before we go. He is really awesome and talented. And like I said, he is someone who was facing failure, sleeping out of his car, and then later in life, right, in his 40s, typically if you don't hit it at a particular time, then it's tough. It's a tough road, but he made it just like Mark Maron, right? Mark Maron had marginal success too, but then it wasn't until he started podcasting that he blew up. And cats are awesome. All right. Cats rule the internet. They do. All right. So what's the next story we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the landlords. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about landlords, everyone. Corporate landlords, or premium partners. Not all landlords are criminals or racists, but some corporate landlords, or this particular corporate landlord, does seem to like evicting Black people. Premium partners, that's the name of the organization. Corporate landlord evicts Black renters at far higher rates than whites, reports find. Once again, I believe this is from NPR. The link to the full article is down below in the description. So the name of the company, as I recall, is Premium Partners. This company, Premium Partners, has filed to evict more than 1,000 residents since last September, says Jim Baker, the executive director of the Private Equity Stakeholder Project. It's a nonprofit advocacy group that describes itself as supporting workers, communities, and others impacted by private equity investment firms. The group has been tracking eviction filings by corporate landlords, and in a report on Premium, that's the name of the organization, says it found a racial disparity, a significant racial disparity. According to the report, since the beginning of the year, they're filing to evict residents at rates 4 times as high in majority Black counties, says Baker. 4 times as high. That's even high in America, everyone. That's even high in standards for the United States of America. The group looked at 4 counties where Premium, and yes, that's a typo. And for those of you who complain about my blog having typos, there are major, legitimate news sources that have typos like this. The name of the organization isn't Pretium, it's Premium. They own hundreds of rental homes in each of the counties, and it compared 2 mostly Black counties in Georgia with 2 mostly white counties in Florida. The median incomes of the counties are similar. I just want to say I got some allergy action. I'm going to have to cough, but I'm going to silence myself. Sorry about that, everyone. Allergies. Non-cat related allergies, too. But the report found in the white counties, Premium, maybe it is Premium, they just said it again, has been filing for eviction against 2% of people renting those homes. Just give me a second here. Renting those homes. By comparison, they filed to evict 10 to 12% of their residents in majority Black counties in Georgia, says Baker. That is disturbing. Indeed, it is. I'm going to get to the next. It keeps saying Pretium, so I'm going to say it's Pretium Partners. I don't think it's the right. I think that's a typo, but let me continue. The report doesn't allege any discriminatory intent on the part of the company. There's nothing here about racial disparities in eviction that I find surprising, says Peter Hepburn, a researcher with the eviction lab at Princeton University. He has read the report and says the disparate impact on Black renters goes far beyond any one company. Hepburn recently published a study looking at millions of court records of eviction across 39 states. The data reaches back before the pandemic. Nationwide, on average, we're seeing eviction filing rates against Black renters that are about twice as high as what we see for white renters, Hepburn says. He says there are many reasons for that, some being economic. But Hepburn says all that still doesn't explain the whole story of why Black renters nationally are twice as likely to have eviction cases filed against them. I think there's a reason to suspect that landlords may be quicker to file for eviction against a Black tenant who's fallen behind on rent than a white tenant, says Hepburn. It's unclear why the report on Pretium's eviction filings apparently found an even higher disparity, more than 4 times the rate. Once again, 4 times the rate in mostly Black counties as in mostly white counties, but Hepburn says that's not unprecedented. He found similar disparities while examining just a few counties around the country. Baker says his group looked at other large corporate landlords too. We've actually found that there are some quite large landlords that have held off on evicting residents, he says. States matter, everyone. States matter. I know that in Massachusetts, there's been, people haven't been able to evict. And well, states matter. and renters in different states have a lot more rights than others. Renters in Massachusetts have many more rights than they do in maybe some other states. And I know that evictions have been paused for quite a while. And there are flyers around in my neighborhood, actually, saying that, you know, if a landlord is trying to evict you, you have rights. Give us a call. Give this number a call. What is the source? It is NPR. This article was from NPR. Yeah, it is premium. I thought it was premium because that made sense, but it is. I was looking at the actual article as I was reading this piece, and it's premium, which I would like to know the story behind that. What's up, Sammy Jenkins? Or remember Sammy Jenkins? RSJ. Okay. Let's see. Good morning. Well, you know, there are definitely landlords who do take advantage of renters. And in states that don't have effective safeguards, if your state doesn't have an effective safeguard against landlords, and that is just a recipe for abuse. That's what it is. All right, I think I've caught up with everything here in the chat. What's the last story? Oh, well, you want to talk about Matt Gaetz for a minute, everyone? Some good news for us, some bad news for Matt Gaetz. So let's take a look at what's going on with Mr. Gaetz and the shenanigans. It's shenanigans. Wow, that's a bold statement. So whatever is going on as the feds are closing in on Matt Gaetz. Here we go. And most incredible part of the show right here, everyone. I know you're just come here to watch me hit buttons.
ABC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams now on both of these investigations. Pete, thanks. Let's start with Matt Gaetz, if we could. What do we know about this alleged phone call?
What we know is, according to a law enforcement official who's familiar with the case, and this issue apparently is a phone call that an ex-girlfriend of Congressman Gaetz was having with another young woman. And at some point during that call, the official says this ex-girlfriend conferenced Gaetz in and added him to the call. And because that other young woman is a potential witness in a federal investigation of whether Gaetz was illegally involved in relations with underage women, investigators are looking at whether that call could amount to obstruction of justice. That's an attempt to influence a potential witness. A spokesman for the congressman said what you quoted at, and he also said after 2 months, the statement says there is still not a single on-the-record accusation of misconduct, and now the statement says the story is changing again. A Gaetz friend, former Florida tax official Joel Greenberg, pleaded guilty last month to sex trafficking of a minor. He's pledged to cooperate fully with investigators looking at whether Gaetz was involved in similar conduct. Now, we have to point out Congressman Gaetz has not been charged with any crime, and he's denied all the allegations.
Pete, what can you report on the investigation into the Postmaster General?
Right. Well, this involves the company that DeJoy ran before he became Postmaster General, called New Breed Logistics in North Carolina. It's a supply chain warehousing and distribution business. The FBI is looking at whether employees were pressured to contribute to Republican candidates and then essentially repaid with company bonuses. It's illegal to funnel contributions through another person in order to get around contribution limits. A spokesman for DeJoy offers this statement.
All right. That's another story. We're talking about Matt Gaetz here. From me, I read a couple of stories about Matt Gaetz, and it seems like an ex-girlfriend is testifying against him along with his ex-wingman. It does not look good for Matt Gaetz. If they can prove that he obstructed justice, that alone can get him into jail, everyone. Am I smiling? I'm smiling. You know, I would smile, you know, because he's a QAnon guy, right? He's a QAnon guy. He's a fan of Trump. He should, you know, just for being complicit with Trump. I mean, in a perfect world, should get you jail time. I know, right? That's what I think. All right. So let's do the last story. Let's do the last story. What's that? Arctic ice. Bum, 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 bum. Arctic ice thinning. Twice as fast as thought, study finds. Less ice means more global heating, a vicious cycle that leaves the region open to new oil extraction. It's been a story that we've been following. And actually, this is one of the hot points. If there's going to be a war, a major power war in the next 5 or 10 years, it's going to occur in a couple of different, it's going to be sparked in a few places. One of them is the South China Sea. And another spot is in the Arctic, because as ice is melting, that is creating a land grab or a sea grab. And this doesn't look good, because you have the Russians putting many bases up in the north, which makes perfect sense if you are a country bordering the Arctic and all of a sudden you have all this new shoreline. However, the problem with Russia is that, of course, Vladimir Putin and they're just some kind of weird. They are what Donald Trump would like to make America, basically an oligarch kind of theocratic sort of government. But I digress. Let's talk about this story about the Arctic ice thinning. Calculating the thickness of sea ice from satellite radar is difficult because the amount of snow cover on top varies significantly. Until now, the snow data used came from measurements by Soviet expeditions on ice floes between 1954 and 1991. That seems like old data. But the climate crisis has drastically changed the Arctic, meaning this information is out of date. The new research used novel computer models to produce detailed snow cover estimates from 2002 to 2018. The models track temperature, snowfall, and ice flow movement to assess the accumulation of snow. Using this data to calculate sea ice thickness showed it is thinning twice as fast as previously estimated in the seas around the central Arctic, which make up the bulk of the polar region. Let me read that again. Using this data to calculate sea ice thickness showed it is thinning twice as fast as previously estimated in seas around the central Arctic. Thinning twice as fast. Should we be? Yes, we should be worried about this. Robert Millet of University College London, who led the study, said sea ice thickness is a sensitive indicator of the health of the Arctic. And when the Arctic warms, the world warms. That's for all of you who haven't been following the story. Of course, most of us here are aware of the global climate crisis and understand these things. So it's really, when I believe climate scientists say these things, it's just to remind those people who have been following such fantastic shows as this one about the urgency of the global climate crisis. The thicker ice acts as an insulating blanket, stopping the ocean from warming up the atmosphere in winter and protecting the ocean from the sunshine in the summer. Thinner ice also less likely to survive during the Arctic summer melt. Changes in the Arctic are also increasingly believed to influence extreme weather, such as heat waves and floods around the northern hemisphere. The rapid thinning of sea ice has consequences for human activities in the Arctic as well. Those human activities is basically being able to navigate previously unnavigatable waters and creating, like I said, this kind of land grab or a sea grab, a grab for sea lanes. A great YouTube channel to check out if you have some kind of weird focus on sea lanes and how powers are trying to do this sea grab. It's the Caspian Report. I look at it every once in a while, the Caspian Report, and it talks about the rule of the seas and how much countries can claim shorelines. And it's somewhat of a mess, everyone. It's somewhat of a mess. Let's take looks at comments. Oh, hey, Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene make a cute couple. Indeed, indeed. Note they have the same initials as M. I did not know that until now. MG and MG, they are. You can see it, how they would carve it in a tree trunk, right? MG plus MG. Let's see. But you can't use updated data. It goes against our narrative. Blazing Wizard Pope. As I have said so many times before, things are far worse than scientists say. A, they're conservative in their estimates. B, companies lie about their emissions and how melting is twice as bad. And now melting is twice as bad. You're right about that, Blazing. When giving data, they have too low numbers, and you make conservative estimates from them, and you compound the accuracy. Yes, I believe, and we've covered this before earlier this week, that the Dutch government, Dutch courts are telling Shell, which happens to be focused in the Netherlands, to limit their carbon emissions like by half within a set period of time. Laughing in disbelief. Any idea what the U.S. and Canada are doing in response militarily? Well, I am sure, from what I've read, is that the U.S. is beefing up its presence in the Arctic, in Alaska. I don't know what the Canadians are doing. I'm not sure. All right. I'm not going to read that comment. It is funny, though, with Spanner. All right, so what stories did we cover today? We blew through a bunch of chunky news articles. We talked about Google diversity, having to fire its diversity captain, the captain of diversity at Google, for anti-Semitic comments and anti-Semitic blog posts. MyPillow, we talked about Mike Lindell. We also had a little discussion about Idi Amin and dictators and how they are often buffoons and considered clowns up until the time they start slaughtering people. Happy things here on the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. Believe me, if you're just tuning in now, we had laughs. There were funny things. We have to do some funny bits here, right? Because otherwise, it's just going to be one sad story after another. Oftentimes, Pretium Properties. Story from NPR about how that company, this corporate landlord, evicting black renters at 4 times the rate as white renters. The Arctic ice melting twice as fast as previously thought. And of course, Matt Gaetz being in trouble for now obstruction of justice, or potentially the obstruction of justice. So that was a happy story, at least amongst the other just news stories, everyone. So what are we doing? We are doing the after party, after show at 10 o'clock. Especially, if you're an atheist, if you're progressive, you want to pop in, you want to talk, or just hang out, bring up topics, subjects, then feel free. Link is in the description. Let's do something funny. Let's do a little video. I don't remember what the video is. It isn't cat related, but it is animal related, I believe. But let's check it out.
All right, guys, I've done everything I know to do to get famous on this TikTok app, but nothing seems to be working. I've seen this work for other people, so I'm going to give it a shot. Here's my butt.
It does seem like the internet is based on show us your butt mentality. Thank you, Jessi Bear, for saying that. Hit the like button. And you're right. Corgi. And Corgi butt, indeed. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, members, YouTube members, and patrons. I appreciate the support. And I just want to point out, I did this little rant last night for like 5 minutes. I got some time here. And I just want to talk about a basic principle here on this channel as against other people's channels, is that I was listening to a show, watching a show on YouTube, and about how the host was telling people in the chat that they could ask a question of the guest if they did a super chat. So in other words, if you contributed money to the channel, then you would get the honor of asking the guest a question or making a comment and being read on the show. That's never going to happen here. I'm not going to try to squeeze you for money for the honor of having your comment read on the show. I don't care who I'm interviewing, because I interview people on Sunday nights, and it's fun, and I think it's unfair. I just think it's effing unfair, to tell you the truth, to say that if you don't have money, then you have as much right to ask a question of the guest or to make a comment and for me to read it as someone who does have the extra couple of shekels in their pocket to contribute to this channel. It gets me angry, actually. It gives me the angers. The Dig podcast, which is a leftist podcast, they have a strictly Patreon. They don't do ads really, and they just work on their patrons, and I think that's the best model possible. But trying to squeeze viewers into throwing out money so that they have the honor of talking to the guest or asking a question of the guest. Yeah, I'm never going to do that, everyone. That's just not what I'm about. So that was my 2-minute rant. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the after party after show. I'm going to do my thank you video, and I have to apologize to the newest member, Cryptameria, that I have not been able to put your name on this thank you video. I'm going to do that over the weekend. I'm just a poor boy. Nobody loves me. Anyway, the wind blows. Doesn't really matter to me. Let's do the thank you video.